Did the Menendez brothers really experience the trauma they claimed, or is there more to their story? The Menendez brothers, Eric and Lyle, are infamous for the brutal murder of their parents, Jose and Mary Louise Menendez, in 1989. But what's often overlooked is the shocking allegations of molestation that surfaced during their trial, adding a layer of complexity to an already disturbing criminal case. The case was complicated from the start, the brothers claiming that they were driven to murder by years of abuse at the hands of their parents. However, their defense was met with skepticism by many who saw it as a desperate attempt to justify their heinous crime. As the trial unfolded, it became clear that the brothers' claim of abuse would be a central theme, raising difficult questions about the nature of their relationship with their parents. The prosecution argued that the brothers were motivated by greed, seeking to inherit their parents' fortune, but the defense claimed that the abuse was real, and it had driven the brothers to take drastic action. This raises the question, how do we separate the truth from the manipulation? Were the brothers telling the truth about their abuse, or was it just a very smart ploy to avoid responsibility for their crime? As the trial progressed, it became clear that the brothers' lawyers were determined to present their client as victims rather than perpetrators. They painted a picture of a dysfunctional family where their parents were controlling and emotionally abusive. But was it just a clever tactic? Or was there some truth to these allegations? The allegations of molestation were particularly disturbing, with the brothers claiming that their father had sexually abused them for years, starting at an age where they couldn't even recall because it's been such a normal part of their lives. This was a bombshell, and it added a new layer of complexity to the case. Were the brothers telling the truth, or was it just a desperate attempt to win sympathy from the jury? As we dig deeper into the background of the brothers, it becomes clear that their upbringing was far from normal. Their father was a strict disciplinarian who ruled the household with an iron fist. The brothers were isolated from their peers, and their social skills were stunted as a result of that isolation. It's clear that their dysfunctional family dynamics played a significant role in shaping the brothers' worldview. But what about the allegations of molestation? Were those true, or were they fabricated? The brothers' lawyers presented evidence that suggested that the abuse was real, but the prosecution argued that this was just a clever ploy. As we examine the evidence, it becomes clear that the truth is far from simple. The allegations of molestation had a significant impact on public perception, with many people expressing sympathy for the brothers. But was this just clever manipulation or public opinion? Was there some truth to their claims? As we welcome the complexity of this case, it becomes clear that the truth is often obscured by the desire for justice. One of the most pivotal moments in the trial came when the brothers took the stand, recounting their experiences of abuse in graphic details. This was a dramatic moment, and it had a profound impact on the jury because it was the first time that one of the brothers apologized to the other for reenacting the sexual molestation that was acted upon him at the hands of his father. But was this all just a clever performance, or was there some truth to their testimony? As the trial drew to a close, it became clear that the allegations of molestation would play a significant role in the jury's decision. The brothers were ultimately convicted of murder, but the allegations of abuse had raised important questions about accountability. In the end, the Menendez brothers were sentenced to life in prison, but the allegations of molestation will always be a part of their story. As we reflect on this case, we're left wondering, did the brothers really experience the trauma they claim, or was there more to their story? Like and share for part 2 as we take a look at the astrology natal chart of the Menendez brothers. This is part 2 of the astrology reading for the Menendez brothers. In August 1989, Jose and Kitty Menendez were watching television in the living room of their Beverly Hills home when their 2 sons walked in and shot them to death. At the time of the murder, the 2 men were 18 and 21 years old. It took 2 trials to convict the brothers of their parents' murder. This video is examining the synergy or astrological synastry between both of them. Let's start with some of the basics. Lyle, the older brother, is a Capricorn sun, a Taurus moon, and an Aries rising. I want you to put an asterisk next to the rising placement since we don't actually have their birth certificates to clearly have proof of the time when they were born. Eric, on the other end, is a Sagittarius sun, a Scorpio moon, and a Virgo rising. Eric, is a Sagittarius stellium because he has 3 or more placements in the sign of Sagittarius. Knowing this, it makes sense that he was the one who told the truth about the fact that they actually murdered their parents. The boys initially claimed that they didn't know who harmed their parents that day. Lyle has his Uranus at the 29th degree. That is the fame degree in astrology. The 29th degree is associated with zodiac sign Leo, and so is the 5th degree. 29th degree is long-term fame, and the 5th degree is short-term fame. Lyle also has his Jupiter at the 5th degree. So the older brother is definitely more famous of the two. As you can see, he has 2 very famous placements in his natal chart. He also has his North Node in Aries. If in fact he does have his rising in Aries, that is a lot of leadership energy, and you can certainly see that between the two of them because he takes more of a dominant role in the relationship. What I thought was really interesting was their 8th house placement. As you know, the 8th house is ruled by zodiac sign Scorpio. Scorpio is a ruler of life and death in astrology. So the 8th house represents this kind of metamorphosis. And since they were accused of killing their parents, it's quite interesting that they have Scorpio at the 8th house, which is where Scorpio would be at home. So Lyle has all of the perfect placements that you can imagine. That is the ideal placement for Scorpio. Eric, on the other end, has Pluto at the 29th degree, which is that same fame degree, and Pluto is a planet of transformation, generally associated with Scorpio in astrology. So given that the oldest brother has his home Pluto placement in Scorpio, and the younger brother, Eric, has Pluto at the 29th degree, which is the fame degree, these two were bound to be famous. It's undeniable. They were made to be famous, and you can clearly see that in their chart. Now, North Node is in Aquarius for Eric, and his 8th house is in the sign of Aries. It's important to note here that in ancient astrology, both Scorpio and Aries are ruled by Mars, the planet of war. Mars is also the planet of destruction, the planet of violence, the planet of aggression. So when you put the 8th house with the planet of aggression and destruction and war for Eric, and you put the 8th house, the planet of birth and death, what you're getting is a lot of warring energy in the 8th house. So the kind of violence that these two enact when they come together is potent and deadly. So just looking at that, we already know there's a theme here with fame, there's a theme here with violence, and there's a theme here with truth, with the stellium that the younger brother has. Now, let's talk about their karmic history. Why did God bring these two individuals together? First, we go to the 12th house. So Lyle is said to have Aries at the 1st house and Pisces at the 12th house. People who have Pisces at the 12th house love to escape their problems. They don't want to tap into divinity. They're very uncomfortable by and large with the idea of spirituality. They struggle often with low self-esteem, low self-worth. Many of them have had very tremendous and intense, emotional experiences from childhood that has made them, feel unsafe in the world. So many of them do not relate well to other people, do not see other people as equal, do not have the kind of empathy that most people have towards just humanity in general. So for many of them, substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, sex, they're very dopamine driven in everything they do, seeking a high, seeking to feel something good that allows them to escape their emotions. That's generally what Aries rising struggles with the most. So when we're looking at that from a karmic perspective, this is somebody who has a lot of spiritual knowledge that they're just not tapping into due to, other issues. I don't want to speculate as to what, but obviously somebody that has 12th house in Pisces knows that, killing your parents is not something that you want to do because that is the most spiritual placement that you can think of. Now, moving on to the younger brother, Eric, he has presumably Virgo in 1st house. Again, some of this you have to take it with a grain of salt, but if it is actually accurate, because that is the only combination that was provided to me for their birthday. So assuming that's accurate, what's interesting about Eric is that he also has Leo in his 12th 12th house. Remember, Leo is fame in astrology. Wherever you see Leo, think life, think grand, think the sun. So having the sun in the 12th house is a very difficult placement. It also speaks to royalty in your bloodline, in your history. So this is somebody that had a lot of fame in previous lives and that was really well known. This is often why when water and fire get together, I like to see Leo with Pisces, because those two are very protective of one another. And you can see that in the way the brothers relate to each other. Now moving on to Saturn. Lyle has his Saturn in Aries and Eric has his Saturn in Taurus. Now, before I get into the specifics, some of the aspects that I want to focus on is I want you to know that it's very clear from looking at their natal chart that these two are soulmates, okay? All of their Saturn placements create trine aspects. In astrology, when your natal chart is divided into three, it forms a 120-degree angle that we call the trine. And the trine occurs when you have two planets that are basically synchronized, that are in harmony and that are gelling well together. And generally, this is because they share the same element, like air and air, water and water, fire and fire, earth and earth. Because of this smoothness, because when we're talking about manifestation, we're talking about energy being smooth and mixing well together. So because of this ease with which trine planets mix, whenever you see that repeatedly in the chart between two people, there is an aspect of it that feels almost faded, because trine means good fortune. It means good luck. It means good vibes. So looking at their Saturn placements, practically all of them fall under this umbrella. So we have Lyle, Capricorn Sun, Eric's Taurus Saturn, Lyle, Aries Saturn, Eric's Sagittarius Sun. Now the only opposition we have is Lyle's Aries Saturn and Eric's Libra Uranus. And in opposition is basically sister signs. You know, Aries and Libra would be in opposition. Sagittarius and Gemini are in opposition. You get the idea here. This opposition is the only aspect between these two that isn't a good vibe, extremely good luck aspect when looking at their karma. And the only tension here with this placement is that, you know, the oldest brother wants to be in charge and he doesn't really communicate about what's causing him to suffer. The younger one wants to really bond with him and he wants him to open up so he can feel better, because remember, presumably he has Virgo at the rising, so he's very concerned about his brother's well-being, but the brother isn't really allowing him in enough for him to be able to assist him with feeling better and taking better care of themselves. The other thing with Libra Uranus too is that Libra Uranus is also a bit of an escapist type personality, someone who doesn't like to face the darkness of life, someone who likes to be tempted by distractions to avoid, you know, the pain of the human experience in general. So there's a lot here of like one chasing after the other, and neither of them wants the other one to lead, and that creates tension, which then prohibits them from growing. But overall, these two are perfect vision, perfect idea, perfect synastry. Whatever happened between them was fated and meant to happen, and it happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. Now, am I saying that, you know, murder is a good thing? Absolutely not. What I am saying is that we can see in your natal chart what your life is fated for and how that plays out in real life. Obviously, it's contingent upon the decisions that you make, but those two are literal soulmates. They've been soulmates before through previous lives. This is not the first time that these two have done this together, because it's very clear that they get along really well when it comes to looking at their karma. Perfect zen. The other aspects here that I want to mention is the contraparallel. And in astrology, a contraparallel is similar to an opposition, but slightly weaker. So Lao's sun sign is contraparallel Eric's public image. Lao's Mercury is also contraparallel Eric's public image, and Lai's Pluto is also contraparallel Eric's Jupiter. So as you can see, the only negative when it comes to their association with their Saturn placement is light, and it's mainly Lyle's ego getting in the way of Eric trying to shape his public perception. For those of you who've seen the series on Netflix by Ryan Murphy, there was a scene where the younger brother confessed to the therapist that, you know, their parents weren't missing and that he and his brother actually killed them. And then Lyle came in there and raised hell and brought in so much fear, so much aggression, so much violence that the therapist then broke confidentiality and told his mistress that, you know, if something were to happen to him, it was these boys, because these boys had disclosed that they killed their parents. Now, had Eric not come into the room with this kind of energy that was very threatening, who's to say that the therapist would have ever shared that information? No one knows. We're never going to know. What I need you to understand is that Lyle's ego and Lyle's communication harms Eric's public image. Eric is in this situation because of the way that he and his brother decided to handle their parents, but more importantly, the way that everything unfolded after the younger brother, Eric, decided to confess to the therapist what happened. So Saturn, excellent placements, and the challenges that are there are more about the two of them struggling to move forward and not being able to. It's almost like they're caught up with each other in this like toxicity, but it's by choice. It's by fate. It's not like they're making a mistake. This is what they're here to do and to be. Lyle's Pluto being contraparallel Eric's Jupiter is very interesting to me because Jupiter is about expansion. It's about growth. It's about success. And Pluto is about transformation, meaning what do I need to let go so I can reach success? And whatever Lyle needs to let go so Eric can reach success, Lyle is not able to let it go. Moving on to Pluto. So both of them have Pluto in Virgo. Those of you who've been following my account for a while, you know that the rules of Saturn is that if you and somebody have the same 12th house, if you and somebody have the same Venus, if you and somebody have the same Saturn, and you and somebody have the same Pluto, then it means you're karmic. Any of these placements should already raise your eyebrow. But if you have multiple, absolutely hell yes, karmic. You've done this before and it is what it is. So those two having the same Pluto in Virgo, clearly karmic energy here. The other interesting aspect of this is that Eric has his Pluto at the 29th degree, which is again the Leo degree, the fame degree. So having your Pluto at the 29th degree in Virgo and also having a Virgo rising, clearly that fame was going to come to you fast. And he certainly did. Lyle has Pluto in Virgo as well, but his is at the 22nd degree. In astrology, we consider this degree the kill or be killed degree. So there is a lot of aggression and dominance that comes with this energy. So naturally, Pluto being the planet of transformation, the planet of birth and death, it makes sense that Lyle, the older brother, was the one that basically came out to the car, reloaded the gun, and told his younger brother, I'm going to go finish off mom. So his idea of aggression, of dominance, definitely supersedes Eric's idea, even though Eric also has this Leo degree there, but the Virgo rising of Eric makes them appear a lot more mild-mannered. Lyle's Mercury in Capricorn interacts with Eric's Pluto in Virgo in the sense that they are able to help each other grow. They're able to give each other wisdom, hidden meaning and knowledge from the experience they've gone through. This is why they're so close. A lot of people actually think they're twins for that reason, because they have a very powerful, dynamic and deeply spiritual and wise kind of connection, because again, they're not new to this. They're true to this. They've done this before. Lyle's Pluto in Virgo interacts with Eric's Mercury in Sagittarius in a square, which creates tension. We don't like squares, okay? Squares are not a good thing in spirituality, in business, in anything meaningful. You want something that flows. You want a circle, you want a triangle, you don't want a square, because a square is a gridlock. It's a closed door. It creates tension. It's contentious. It prevents authenticity, self-expression. It creates competition. It prevents transformation because it's stagnant. It's too put together. Pluto promises transformation and growth and naturally a glow up if you're willing to let go of the things that you're supposed to let go of. But Mercury in Sagittarius may not necessarily, if it's not worked in the positive, meaning that if the person is not speaking truth, how can you grow when the data you're getting is wrong? It's not going to make sense. Now, Lyle's Pluto in Virgo interacts really well with Eric's Jupiter in Scorpio because Virgo and Scorpio are highly compatible. It's very easy for those two to see each other's light and dark. It's easy for those two to work together well and focus on what they need to get rid of so that they can expand, they can grow. They both know how to manipulate themselves and energy around them to be able to have the power to get the things done that they want to get done. Now, lastly, Lyle's Pluto in Virgo interacts with Eric's Saturn in Taurus in a really healthy way as well, because they're both earth signs. And as you know, Saturn in astrology, which is the ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius, rules the material world. And Pluto rules the underworld. So when Saturn and Pluto come together, it's the equivalent of Scorpio and Capricorn coming together. They have total dominance, total power. So Pluto in this case is going to help this Taurus Saturn get rid of things that Taurus Saturn doesn't need anymore, which would be Eric. Eric had a lot of hangups from watching the series about his sexuality, something that we never saw Lyle experiencing, even though Lyle was also violated by his father, allegedly, the same way that Eric was. Lyle is able to help his brother, Eric, give himself the stability that he never had. He's able to give him insight and wisdom, and he's able to tune into him, you know, even psychically on some level, to be able to recognize what his brother is struggling with and then offer him the door, the peace of mind that he needs to find that stability. So these two are totally meant to be. These two are highly compatible. When we add to that, you know, Lyle's Uranus in Virgo at the 29th degree, which is fame degree, and then Eric's Pluto in Virgo at the 29th degree, which is fame degree, we have both, you know, Uranus in Virgo, Pluto in Virgo conjunction here. So this is like same energy. These two are highly manipulative, highly observant, highly obsessive. These two are highly analytical. You know, it's obvious here that there is a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of aggression with these charts. There's definitely, it was already written in the stars that these two were going to be famous. Obviously not for something healthy, because you can see Virgo is about health. So when a Virgo is not healthy or is unhealed, they're some of the most dangerous people you'll ever meet, because these are not people that are simple-minded. You know, these are highly intellectual people that are able to figure out loopholes in the system to get their needs met. However nefarious the means may be, they don't really care if they have no ethics, if they have no self-respect, if they have no values, if they don't have any good sense of self-esteem. There's no low that they won't stoop to get what they want. And they would do so while looking like the good guy. So this idea of them wearing, you know, these sweaters, and that was a lot of the joke back then, is very fitting for this profile, because these are people that want to be seen as in charge, as leaders, or actually without the self-esteem needed to actually own that leadership. So then they hide behind their insecurities to do things that are very domineering, similar to how their father behaved, you know, as a way to get their needs met. Whether unaliving their parents was a solution to their problem, that's for them to figure out. But it's very clear here that there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of unaliving energy here. When you look at their 8th house, when you look at the Scorpio energy, you look at the Leo energy, some of this was going inevitable, that all of this was going to come to light. And the story of these boys, when looking at their North Node, Lyle has his North Node in Aries and Eric has his North Node in Aquarius, both very rebellious energy. So whether it was premeditated or not is really irrelevant at this point. As someone that has worked as a therapist primarily in the last 20 years, I am confident that these boys were sexually abused by their parents. And I am confident that the mom knew and did nothing to protect them. And I certainly understand why anyone would want to resolve that issue this way, especially without any protection. You know, when children are abused by the people who are supposed to care for them the most, where are they supposed to go? Not every child has that courage to go and tell the school counselor, so that, you know, an investigation can ensue and they can get the protection that they need. And unfortunately, most of the time when children are abused, it's never by a stranger, and it's almost always at the hands of a parent, a relative, a friend, a family friend, somebody that the child is comfortable with, who has access to them, because it's easier for them to get groomed and to get manipulated, because that person is able to control the environment that the child is in. And that's how they're able to get away with it, you know, doing this kind of toxic, unhealthy, you know, abusive, violent behavior towards their child. And they really psychologically also mess up the child with all the shame and the fear and the swearing to secrecy and all of that, which naturally, when a child gets to be a teenager and they're wanting their freedom and their sexual abuser fathers refusing to give it to them, they're going to feel trapped. And that's what that looked like for them. So what did you think of this reading? Were there any parts of it that were surprising to you? If so, leave it in the comment box. Thanks for watching. For more content like this, head over to our YouTube channel at Styled Under and link in bio if you wish to schedule your private astrology reading. Part 3 of the astrology reading of the Menendez family. This part 3 will focus solely on the astrology natal chart of the parents. For those of you unfamiliar with the story, Eric and Lyle Menendez, at the time 18 and 21 years old, stormed into their parents' living room in their Beverly Hills mansion while they were watching television and brutally murdered them. This case is being re-examined as new evidence is showcasing that the children were emotionally, physically, and sexually abused by the parents for years. So the murder was their way of freeing themselves. Let's dive into the parents' chart. The father, Jose Menendez, is a Taurus stellium. He has a Taurus sun, a Taurus Mercury, and a Taurus Venus. In addition, with regards to personal planets, he has his moon in Libra, his Mars in Cancer, his Jupiter in Leo, his Saturn in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini, Neptune in Libra, and Pluto in Leo. Leo energy and Scorpio energy is very significant in the brothers' charts. The fact that this energy is prevalent here with the Jupiter and the Pluto here for the father as well as the North Node shows you what happens when fame or the desire to be famous or the desire to be seen and to be appreciated and to be worshipped, takes over, because his North Node in Leo indicates that he was here to become famous. And when you look at the boys' chart, in part 2, you can see that fame is a huge reason why they did this. So it's almost like you wanted to destroy us so bad so this Beverly Hills community can think that you're something special. Because remember, Jose, is an immigrant from Cuba. So he's already dealing with this immigrant complex. He comes to the US, he's living on the East Coast, New York, New Jersey area, gets a job, moves out to, LA, and then becomes like this executive and that's really wealthy. So his ambition and his desire to be seen is really what drove the ship here. As you can see, there's a lot of dominance, there's a lot of power, there's a lack of flexibility in thinking. And what makes it worse is this Mars in Cancer, which Mars in Cancer is very manipulative, very nasty energy when unhealed, because it's all about being able to read other people's emotions and then using it against them to get what it is that you want from them. And Saturn in Gemini obviously is a big part of this, and we can get into the Saturn placement a little bit later. So ultimately, this story was fated for this family. This is why they came here. They came here to expose the downside of fame. They came here to expose, what happens when our ego and our wants and our needs and our selfishness and our vanity is unchecked. That was their story. Jose and his wife Kitty also have Aries at the rising. Now, we want to take the rising information with a grain of salt because we're not actually looking at a birth certificate. Based on the data that we have, Aries rising is very strong. So this means that they have the same 12th house placement. Again, assuming that the rising is correct. They both have 12th house in Pisces. And I already mentioned that one of the brothers, the oldest, Lyle, also has 12th house in Pisces. So the lack of love that these three have been giving each other through millennia is really what they continued, because 12th house in Pisces is a spirit that was denied love through several lifetimes. So Lyle keeps picking parents who are telling God, I will love you. And when Lyle gets here, these people get in their ego, whatever, which is what was the case in this situation. These two are very much so in their ego, and they decide that they're going to cheat Lyle out of love and use Lyle to give themselves more love. And that's why the story, spiritually speaking, erupted, because these two were here to actually love each other through their wounds so they could heal each other and then create a healing, loving environment for Lyle to thrive. As you can see, Lyle is very protective of Eric. So if they had done their emotional labor, their healing labor, and healed themselves, they would have been in a loving relationship, which then would have given Lyle the opportunity to feel love. And then that love that he naturally already had, for his brother Eric would have just been even more pronounced. So then the whole family would have been happy and healthy and in love and really being honestly rooted in love with each other in their family tradition, which was very important to Jose from what I've seen of the series. But unfortunately, he struggled with some other issues that prevented him from being able to display that love. In the Netflix series by Ryan Murphy, there was mention of Jose being sexually molested by his aunt in Cuba when he was younger. So if that is in fact true, we're looking at a man who was molested by his aunt, who was not protected by his parents, who then took that anger into his marriage and then molested his children and, and married a woman who did not protect his children. And then these children revolted and took their parents' life as a result. Now, diving into Kitty's chart, she has a Libra sun, a Leo moon, a Scorpio Mercury, a Sagittarius Venus. So she and the youngest brother, Eric, have a close bond because he is a Sagittarius sun. She also has an Aries Mars. So that's that violence and aggression. She's very triggering for the oldest brother because the oldest brother has Aries at the rising. So she really did not like his personality at all. She wanted him to be more demure and he was not. She has Jupiter at Gemini, Saturn at Taurus, Uranus at Taurus, and Virgo at Neptune. Remember, the brothers have Pluto in Virgo, one at the 29th degree and one at the 22nd degree. Her Neptune degree for Virgo is at the 28th degree, which is household name. She also has her Uranus, which is the planet that rules over Aquarius. Uranus is about evolution, bringing things to light, making us more conscious, more aware, more humanitarians, more socially aware of the pain that is on Earth. And Uranus is here to push our desire forward to create a better Earth. She has that placement in Taurus at the 29th degree. She is the epitome of the mother who does not protect their child. It doesn't get worse than that because this is Leo energy, which is long-term fame energy. And having Uranus there, which is about progression, and seeing how the story played out, she certainly did nothing. Whatever the least amount possible was that you could do, she did less than that. Her Leo moon is also at the 5th degree, which is another fame degree. As you know, in astrology, the 5th degree, the 29th degree, the 28th degree are all fame degrees. The 28th degree is more Cancer degree, not as famous as Leo, but definitely household name. So she has 5th degree Leo moon, 29th degree Uranus, and 5th degree Pluto. All of these degrees are famous degrees. There was no way this family was not going to be famous because out of the 4 of them, 3 of them have fame degrees and 2 of them have several fame degrees. As a reminder, when you have the same 12th house with someone, it's an indication that you have karmic history together that you need to resolve. So Lyle, the oldest brother, mom, and dad, all 3 of them have Pisces at their 12th house placement. And remember, Pisces is exalted at Venus. When you get to Pisces energy, you're supposed to love everything and everyone. So for people with Pisces in 12th to be that cold, that unkind, that unloving, that's definitely a sign that they are in their demonic energy and very, very far away from the light. Now, moving on to examine the synastry of Saturn energy between both of them. The dad, Jose, has a Saturn in Gemini that trines really well with her Libra sun. He has his Saturn in Gemini that conjuncts really well with her Jupiter in Gemini. His Saturn in Gemini creates a square with her Neptune in Virgo, and his Neptune in Libra trines really well with her Saturn Taurus. So these two are fated. In terms of their karmic energy, it's beautiful energy. It's matching together really well. All of the interactions with the aspects are happening at the 3rd degree, which is Gemini degree. Remember, Saturn in Gemini, right? So all of their interactions happening at Gemini degree is about what? Information. Gemini is about communication. It's about information. It's about sharing something new. So these two spiritually sign a contract to come together to put on a show for us to say, look, world, this is what happens when you decide to put your selfish needs of vanity needs, this need to be seen, to be worshipped, to be known, to feel important. When you decide to put that over your healing, this is what happens. What happens is that you create an environment where everything on paper looks good, but inside the house, nothing is good. And eventually, what is truth always comes to light. This is why Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is the largest planet in our solar system, because we cannot manifest, we cannot progress as a human race without truth. So they were fated for this. Beautiful karmic energy. These two have done this before. They've probably signed up for this assignment before to be the bad guy in the story. so that they can help teach the rest of us. Because remember, everything is love. So everything that comes to us is to give us something. And sometimes the bitter truth is what heals. The only aspect with these two with regards to Saturn that isn't so positive is the Saturn in Gemini and Neptune in Virgo. Virgo and Gemini seem like on paper they would be compatible, but they're actually not. Neptune is how we make our dreams come true, and Saturn is where we need to restrict ourselves, where we need to hold ourselves back, where we need to manage ourselves. So for Jose, it's the things that comes out of his mouth, the information that he shares or doesn't share. So basically, Jose is a liar. Jose lies a lot. And Jose loves lying, and he loves being able to get away with lying. Now, the way that her dreams come true is through healing, through health, through being, the virgin. Virgo in their high vibrational state is very healthy. Virgo is very honest. In fact, Virgo detests liars when they're in their healed and healthy energy. Virgo's very routine. Virgo's busy basically managing themselves so that they can accomplish their goals. She has her Neptune at the 20th degree, which is the household name degree. In the movies, as well as in the series, she's depicted as a mother who was physically present but emotionally absent because clearly she had a lot of mental, emotional issues she was dealing with that kept her on drugs, taking pills, emotionally not present, because there were several instances where she would hear the father raping the boys and beating the boys, and she would do nothing about it. She would shut the door, she would turn around. There was even an incident where a family member who'd come to spend the night with the boys had told her that one of the boys disclosed that the dad had raped him, and she did nothing. She did nothing to protect him. She did nothing to address it. So this is Virgo energy when it's unhealed. Virgo is the healer of the zodiac. So Neptune in Virgo not taking action to bring healing into her mindset and her child's mindset is problematic. These two, Gemini and Virgo, are highly attracted to each other because they both have mercurial energy, but the issue with the two of them together is a matter of ethics. They love to share information, but they seldom discuss whether the information is useful, whether it's valuable, whether it actually contributes to their well-being. Gemini is very removed from that sort of ethical, spiritual conversation, and Virgo is a little bit more in tune, but Virgo, because of their maturity, spiritual maturity, often gives into the hand of Gemini because Gemini is very interesting for Virgo. So Jose, putting this relationship within the patriarchy, has more power in this relationship dynamic. So what he does is he uses his words to pick on her and make fun of her and make her feel destabilized. Because remember, Jose is a master manipulator and abuser. Now, she, on the other hand, is afraid of him. She finds him very frustrating and she finds him very controlling. There's a lot of blaming each other, shaming each other, but they feel like they have to keep up this, happy marriage antics or image to keep things moving forward for them. At her core, this mother is unreliable, irresponsible, and definitely not willing to show up for the job of motherhood. Is she physically there? Yes. Did she have those children? Yes. But does she actually want to mother those boys? The answer is no. So she had these children and handed them over to him, knowing that he was abusing them in every way imaginable, and she did nothing to protect them. She resented the fact that he had the power, and she resented the fact that he could not be controlled by her, because this is the other interesting dynamic between these two. She was definitely the smarter one of the two of them, but he shut her up and she chose to shut up. That's basically their dynamic. Now we have this situation where there's tension between them because the things that he's doing aren't always the best things, but she's also choosing not to address it because they care about each other, they love each other. More importantly, they love the status that they've gained, given their history, and they're not willing to risk it. They're not willing to do the heavy lifting of changing that status. Now, these two, when looking at their Saturn, she has her Saturn, which is a planet of karma, in Taurus, and he has his in Gemini. The stability that she needs, he could never provide to her. So this was never going to work in terms of him actually doing the things that he needs to do to make their relationship better. She only got tricked because he's a Taurus stellium. So she looked at him and thought, oh, Taurus Sun, Taurus Mercury, Taurus Venus. So this guy is going to be the answer to what it is that I need because I have a Taurus Saturn. That's where I need to exercise the most control. I have Taurus Uranus. That's how I develop and grow. And what did he do? He controlled her and basically got her to regress, to become a shell of herself. She also has her Lilith in Taurus, so that is exactly the energy she was here to heal. Her relationship with stability, financial stability, emotional stability, physical stability. She came here to work on these things and she was not able to. She failed that test. He has his Lilith in Virgo, so she was supposed to help him, believe in his dreams and make his dreams come true and do things the right way and establish, a foundation for their family to grow and prosper and become successful. He also has his Chiron in Virgo. So Lilith in Virgo, Chiron in Virgo, he simply has mummy issues that he refused to heal. Virgo energy is about mummy issues. It's about healing energy. It's similar to Cancer in the sense that it's about a lack of nurturing, because Virgo children never get nurtured by their parents. They get turned into machines who fulfill a purpose for their parents, but they never get nurtured. So he thought if he became famous, then he would get what he was seeking from his parents. Virgo children typically identify more with the masculine in the home. They model the masculine, they want to be like the masculine, and then they kind of turn their back on their mother because Virgo children think emotions are disgusting and they're unstable and they're unhealthy and they're unproductive. Virgo children really have this kind of all or nothing attitude about their lives. This is why Virgo often thinks in black and white, because Virgo thinks if it's logical, if it's pragmatic, if it's devoid of emotion, then it's the right thing. And if it's messy and if it's emotional and it's chaotic, then it's messy. And Virgo doesn't like messes. And unfortunately for Jose, he had a lot of demons in his closet from messes from his childhood. A lot of pent up anger and aggression about, the lack of love he received from both of his parents that he simply decided to bury. And unfortunately for all of us, when we bury things, they come back up. Whack-a-mole. Like the game of whack-a-mole, that's how our minds work. The human mind just files things away, but things don't disappear because we put it away in the file. It's still here. So the thing that we put away in that file, if we don't heal it, if it needs healing, it comes back up in different ways. So the hurt that he endured at the hand of his aunt, allegedly, and who knows who else molested and raped this boy when he was young, he took that hurt and gave it to his children. And his children took it and gave it to each other. And then they took it to prison and probably gave it to some other people, because that is how pain travels through the world. Everybody keeps giving it to the next person until somebody decides to heal that. Now, moving on to their Pluto. They both have Pluto in Leo. One has it at the Virgo degree, which is the father. Again, he was here to work on his healing. He was here to work on healing his physical health, his mental health, to get a schedule around his daily routine, to get grounded and stable in his body, to deal with his insecurities, to learn to love himself, and to learn to feel good within himself as a human being, regardless of money. That is what he was here to do. And what did he do? Pretend to look the part, but not actually be the part. And he ended up paying for that because Leo is very powerful energy. Wherever you have Leo in your chart is where you cannot hide, because that's where the sun is. Trying to hide the sun is foolish. Nobody can hide the sun. Same with the mom. Kitty has Leo in Pluto as well, and she has it at the 5th degree, which is short-term fame degree. So she has Pluto at the 5th degree, Moon at the 5th degree, Uranus at 29th degree, and Neptune at 28th degree. Kitty's chart carries a lot of fame energy. So they were going to get famous. And if you notice, there's a scene in the series where Lyle, after he shot the parents, the mom was refusing to die because she still wanted to tell her story. She was still fighting for her life. And Lyle tells the brother, I'm going to reload my gun and go back in and finish mom. Lyle was more angry that mom wouldn't die. Because why wouldn't she die? Because this whole time, she did nothing to help him, nothing to protect him, nothing to save him. What does she have to say now? Why won't she just rest? Why won't she just go away? Because Kitty was supposed to stand up for these boys. She was supposed to protect them because she has Taurus at Saturn. That was her spiritual godly obligation. She also has Taurus at Uranus. Taurus is a nurturer. So a nurturer who does not nurture is vastly working against themselves. So it makes sense that when you bring these two energies together, Pluto, it's going to create some distraction. As you know, Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. It's about transformation via destruction. That is the only way Scorpio evolves, is through pain and through destruction. Now let's look at the rest of their Pluto placements. In terms of examining the aspects, He has his Venus in Taurus square her Pluto in Leo, not compatible. He has his Pluto in Leo trine her Venus in Sagittarius, very compatible. He has his Mercury in Taurus square her Pluto in Leo, not compatible. He has his Pluto in Leo square her Mercury in Scorpio, not compatible. And he has his Uranus in Gemini sextile her Pluto in Leo. Beautiful energy. So when looking at their Pluto energy, their sort of transformation work, the spiritual transformative work that was needed for them to actually become famous and be able to enjoy their fame, they refused to do because a lot of it rested upon their ability to heal themselves. For her, it was healing herself of her vanity, healing herself of her need to be seen in order to feel appreciated, healing herself of this kind of Leo grandiose energy. And for him, it was healing himself physically. It was healing his body, healing his mind, basically Virgo energy. And they both refused to do that. He thought she was going to heal and help him become who he's supposed to be. And she thought he was going to heal and help her become who she was supposed to be. Because he has Chiron at Virgo, and she has Virgo North Node, and he has Leo North Node, and she has Chiron at Leo. So these two are basically like looking at each other like, are you going to do the right thing? Are you going to do the right thing? If you do the right thing, I'll do the right thing. If I do the right thing, you do the right thing. Who's going to do the right thing first? So there's a lot of that kind of energy because doing the right thing requires death. It requires killing the ego. It requires acknowledging that you are wrong, acknowledging that you're not doing things correctly and that this is harmful and this is not good and this is not loving and this is not how we treat children. But they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep living in this egotistical perception of themselves where they're perfect, they do nothing wrong, they're famous, they're wealthy, they get whatever they want, however they want, the world bends to their will and nothing bad ever happens. That's how they wanted to play it. And they both ended up losing their lives because of it. The last thing I want to mention, since they have the same 12th house placement, and as you know, Pisces is exalted at Venus, is that their Venus is highly incompatible. One thing I like about Taurus and Sagittarius together is that they're very good at making money together. This is the wealthy couple of the zodiac. Wealth follows them wherever they go because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, and Jupiter rules expansion, growth, luck. And then Taurus is ruled by Venus, one of the closest planet to the sun. Venus is about love. It's about abundance. It's about things that are expensive and beautiful. So did they accomplish that desire of creating a lot of wealth and living in luxury? Yes. But the other aspect of the relationships needed healing, a healing that they simply refused to engage in. So here we are. This entire story is karmic. This entire story is fated. This was supposed to be what it was supposed to be. God makes no mistakes. This is exactly what God intended. It's up to us to learn from them and not repeat the same mistakes. What part of the story did you find interesting? What astrological takes did you make from it that I left out? Leave your comments in the box below. Follow our other YouTube channels for astrology content. The Astrology Weekly podcast at Astrology Weekly on YouTube will provide you with horoscope readings as well as tips for manifesting the life of your dreams. You can also follow our main YouTube page at Intuitive Healing with an N for general astrology information as well as psychological tips. Thanks for watching.